Going to show appreciation for a couple of Jacksonville Jaguars. Parker Washington is the first one. We'll do it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of this podcast that is on the Locked On Podcast Network, which is the number one sports podcast network. And we are glad to have you with us, and we do not take you for granted. We appreciate you guys making us your first listen because it is your team every day. Shout out to the everydayers who join us each and every day. And they listen or watch wherever they get their podcast so they don't miss an episode like the one today that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get down to the nitty gritty. I'm going to go in reverse order right here. I would not mortgage the future to get any player in the National Football League. I'll tell you why. Foyesade Oluokun appreciation is going to be in Seg 2. There's a lot of the fan base that think that they're going to get rid of him. I'm not so sure about that. But we're going to start talking about Parker Washington. I think Parker Washington should be a lifer Jaguar. Now, lifer, I know lifer is like, okay, his whole career. What about 8 years, 9 years? I get it. Guys get older. They move around for whatever reason. But he is someone I believe personifies everything that you want in a football player in your building. He's not the only one. Foyesade, we're going to talk about him. Trayvon, we're going to talk about him too a little bit. They are just building guys who happen to be very, very good football players. They are culture people. They are, and I know y'all going to get sick of me using that culture word because we finally actually got it around here, but I'm going to keep talking about it. But they just do everything the way you kind of want it done. You know what I'm saying? If instead of building a football team, if your football team was your daughter, and work with me here now. If your football team was your daughter, and the players you have on that football team that you that asked for your daughter's hand in marriage, your brother-in-law, I mean your son-in-law, this is the person you want to be your son. Parker Washington and Trayvon and Foyesade Oluokun, those are the dudes that you want to be married to your daughter. That's the football team. I know that's some weird stuff to be conjuring up, but I'm kind of weird like that sometimes. The thing is though, you just want them to be a part of you and your organization and your team and your city. What made me think that way about Parker? Because all you've seen Parker Washington do since he got here was just keep working. Even when the draft came around and they went out and got Brian Thomas Jr. And then they went out and got Travis Hunter and said Travis Hunter was going to play. And then they gave Diami Brown $10 million. And then they traded for Jacoby Myers and they paid him. Meanwhile, Parker Washington is just going along with it. And he kept working. No, he didn't enter the transfer portal. He didn't stick his lip out and hang his head. He worked. He worked. He got tree trunk legs, so I know he was in there lifting some weights with his legs, but his conditioning, his work ethic, his mannerisms, it all plays a factor into it. He's so good, in fact, I don't think they need to be letting him return punch next year. I think he needs to be a heavy rotation wide receiver on this football team, and that means they might have to go out and get somebody else in the draft to be returning punts and be the fifth receiver. Zachariah Branch may be in the third round, but I digress. All right, we ain't going to get into that yet, but that's how valuable I think he is. There's some other receivers that did similar to what he did. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as the two people that I'm about to mention, but Steve Smith Sr. started out running back kicks and punts. Antonio Brown started out on special teams, running back kicks and punts. I think Parker Washington, because he's sure-handed, because he kind of, when he gets the ball in his hand, he kind of turns into a running back because of how he's built. He runs with power. You can't knock him off of his square. He's going to run right through those little leg tackles if you don't really grab him. But the thing is while they were doing all of that and trying to figure out these other dudes they had plans for, he went to special teams and made an impact. When he makes an impact on special teams, what that says is this is real. And James Gladstone, the GM, even mentioned the other day, he said, okay, you saw it in the offseason program. You saw it. You knew it was a training camp. Okay, is this real? What's going to happen when we really, really put him out there? Well, they put him out there, and I'm going to tell you what happened. He put the league on notice that he is a very, very good player. He can be your number 2 receiver. He absolutely could be your number 2 receiver. They don't have numbers here. They don't have wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in Jacksonville. They just got roles that people play and matchups, and wherever the ball's going to go, that's where the ball's going to go. The thing about Parker is when the ball goes his way, he catches it. When it's not a good throw, he makes it look like a good throw. His body control, his feistiness, his ability to run the entire route tree. He may be built like a slot, but he can play outside just effectively as he can play inside in the slot. In fact, I think he played outside in college more than he actually played inside. But he's a jack of all trades, man. He's a jet sweep guy. He's everything. But more importantly, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, when you get good players, you have to keep them in your organization, especially the ones that are homegrown, especially the ones that bring to the table the work ethic, the confidence that you need in order to kind of build a franchise, right? Parker Washington, man, this is a Parker Washington appreciation segment because, for one, I'm going to admit something right here. I know Brent Martineau said something in preseason, and maybe some of the other guys too. Forgive me if I don't remember exactly who it was, but they were singing the praises out of Parker Washington. And a buddy of mine called me on the phone and said, Parker doing all of that, man. So this is the first year of Liam Cohen. They got Travis Hunter. They're trying to figure that out. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I said. If we were worried about wide receiver 4 getting snaps, we doing something wrong. So on the surface, ain't nothing wrong with that kind of thinking because it's kind of right. I mean, just think about all the teams that are winning right now. You think who's the wide receiver 4 for all of those teams? It wasn't a slight. It's just what it was. They paid Diamond $10 million. They had Travis. They had BTJ. What I like about Parker, though, even though there may have been people that felt just like I did, he kept working because you never know when your opportunity or your number is going to be called. Football is a tough game, man. The NFL is hard. These guys are hitting, guys are pulling stuff, people are getting hurt. At the end of the year, by the time those last 6, 7, 8 weeks rolled around, Parker Washington, you couldn't keep him off the field because if you did, you weren't as good as you could be when he wasn't in the lineup. That's something to be said to his work ethic. It's also something to be said to the staff for giving him the opportunity and having the confidence in him, even though he started out at wide receiver 4, for him to end up being an invaluable part of that offense to Trevor Lawrence and to this entire run that the Jaguars made. It is a testament to him, and I'm going to give him all kinds of props today. I'm going to give somebody else props. This person is, I'm going to warn people to be careful what you ask for because folks are still trying to figure out a way to move on from Foyesade Oluokun. And I think he was top 3 in tackles again this year. And when I watch him play, I'm like, why do you want to get rid of him? For what? We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguar. All right, man. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Ultimate QB. That's right, man. Ultimate QB is where it's at. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Ultimate QB. That's right. Look, the draft picks, positions are set, and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. Like it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. It's going to fly off the board this year, right? Have you ever wished to be that? Like if you were Mendoza, well, I'll tell you what, you can get it done today. Well, now there's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness to help a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number 1 QB career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. You sign contracts, train, upgrade yourself, build chemistry, and evolve your teammates. Give input to your GM on roster moves and play the actual game in 2D and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. And I play it when I'm on flights because it works when you're in airplane mode. So you can be offline. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you. And it's just for you guys. Use the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. It's Ultimate QB football legend, QB1. It's your legacy. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Home Chef. If you guys are like me and you need good food options, but you sometimes run out of time and you can't get it done, Home Chef is right there for you. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are really just trying to simplify their routines. And dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/locked on for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. All right, we're rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Always grateful to make you guys our first listen and to do this podcast for you, the fans. Love it to death. I'm going to give some more appreciation now. Foyesade Oluokun. I gave Parker Washington on defense. Now, Foyesade Oluokun, underrated around the National Football League, does not get the credit that he deserves. Probably should have been an all-pro at some point, since I think over the last 5 years, he is the top tackler in the National Football League when you add all of those seasons up together. Some of those stats were on bad teams, though, right? And you look at it and you go, yeah, he's #1 because the defensive line stinks and people keep running the ball. That wasn't the case this year, and he was still top 3. And the reason why it wasn't the case this year, it just shows me that Foyesade Oluokun knows exactly how to find the football, and he has a navigation system and a radar that takes him right to whoever has the ball. And when he gets there, he brings the heat, and he is a sure tackler. I just wonder why everybody keeps trying to get rid of him. And I'm thinking that what people believe is, well, you got to keep Devin Lloyd, so you can't have 2 guys making the kind of money that Devin Lloyd is going to demand on the open market. They are not the same, even though Jaguars really most of the time are in 4-2-5, which is like a nickel. And both linebackers kind of play like Mike's, but kind of play like Will's, really not a Sam linebacker. In a 2 linebacker front, they're kind of interchangeable. And Devin Lloyd is a little bit younger. I think Devin's like 26, 27 years old, because he was an older player when he came into the league. In fact, let me go ahead and check that really, really quick, just so I can absolutely. Yeah, Devin Lloyd is 27. At the start of this season, probably like week 3 or 4, he'll be 28 years old. And now I look at Foyesade Oluokun and his age, and guess what? At the start of the year, he'll be 31. So I get people sitting there thinking, okay, look, we can keep that guy and move on from him, move on from Foy. The problem is when you're looking at age as opposed to looking at impact and whether or not a guy's lost a step, that's where a mistake comes in. I think you're crazy to get rid of him, because I also think he is the quarterback of the defense. He is Trevor Lawrence on defense. He's a trusted veteran. And I always tell this story, and I'm going to tell it again. When they had Miles Jack and they couldn't find a way to get him on the field, when they had Telvin Smith, and when they had Posluszny, and people were like, I was doing radio, and everybody, it was like, pause. Even people in the media, they got to put him on the field for pause. Pause is getting old. Pause is getting. I said it in the locker room. I think Sinderick Marks and Telvin Smith and Dan Skoda and Jared Odrick, I think they wanted to fight me, jokingly, but I said, we got to get him on the field. So Derek said, well, who you going to play? And everybody looked. I said, pause. And everybody went, shh, you crazy. So that let me know that all of the whispers and the stuff that you were hearing in the wind about pause, that sentiment was not shared by those teammates in that locker room. And I also believe if you start saying stuff like that about Foyesade Oluokun, you are going to get pushback from that locker room in the same way. Boselli might drop kick you. And trust me, he's 6'7", 6'8". If he drop kicks you, he ain't got to be close to you to do it. I just think it is underrated when you have someone like that on your team for you while he's still in his prime, while he takes care of his body, while he's the quarterback and the team leader on that defense, while people trust him and he's very, very dependable and he has not lost a step. I will repeat that. I don't care if he was 33, he's still running around playing at a very, very high level. You cannot let a guy like that go. Tell you what, you let him go, he's going to end up somewhere like Tennessee or Houston, and then you're going to be sitting there scratching your head wondering why you did it. Figure it out. I don't know if it's an either-or situation. I will tell you this, in certain passing situations, I don't see them take Foyesade Oluokun out the game. I see them take Devin Lloyd out of the game, and I brought that up yesterday and it's not a demerit or a knock on Devin Lloyd. But if you're going to give a dude $20 million, no matter how good he is and no matter how good his season was, no matter what your scheme is, he is just not someone that should come off the field when you are in a wild card playoff game and Buffalo has the ball on the last drive. What is he coming out for? I don't care what the scheme is. I don't care if you running a dime. He stays on the field if he's making that kind of money. So it's not about him per se as much as it is about the positional value. And there's going to be somebody out there that's willing to give up a whole bunch of bread that actually probably needs. They don't have a Foyesade Oluokun, so they need Devin Lloyd. It's almost like the 49ers when they let Dre Greenlaw walk. And I know Greenlaw was injured, but still, it's just like, you know, the Chiefs have let linebackers walk. It's almost as if maybe they believe that Devin Lloyd guys like that don't grow on trees. But maybe they believe we can get somebody to play that position that you ain't got to be that good to play this spot for us. And you never want players to not be good. That's not really what I'm saying. But sometimes from a positional value standpoint, there is a little bit of overkill and you got to make tough decisions, especially when you win. Now, if they'd done a deal with him last year without knowing, because before this year, I thought he was gone last year, to be honest with you. Before this season started and he came back in shape, I was like, if they want to trade him, that's fine. And everybody was cool with it. But then he responds this year in the contract. He plays really, really well. And I'm not going to sit here and blaspheme him to the point where I say, well, it was only because it was a contract. Yeah, no, but I mentioned that because it's the truth, right? If you got to let him go, I get it. And I understand that you just got to let him go. He's not Fred Warner. It's what it is. And we're looking at the ability and the playmaking, and we love it. But saying that you need to get rid of Foy in order to keep Devin, I think in that situation, you're going to be missing something with Foy that is more difficult to replace. And that is a quarterback on defense, and that is the leadership of a player like that. All right, so Ryan O'Halloran, who's the columnist for the Jacksonville.com and the Florida Times Union, if I'm not mistaken, says the Jaguars should make a move for Maxx Crosby. I ain't opposed to Maxx Crosby. I'm opposed to how, at least I heard, the transaction was going to go. Somebody quoted it, I can't remember who it was because I didn't actually click on the article. And I know Hayes Carline from 1010XL said the same thing. He said, I'm all for it. It's time to make a Super Bowl. I'm going to tell you why I'm against the Jaguars mortgaging their future. I don't care who the player is. We'll discuss that in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, and cheering alongside other fans watching at home is great, but being in the stadium, oh no, it hits a lot different, man. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. I was in Aruba on beach. And a very successful DJ called me and said, man, I need tickets. I said, well, I ain't got no tickets for you, but you can go to Game Time and get something because I know they got them for you. And guess what? It happened. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Man, listen, this is what you need to do. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The wild card round, the division, it is all here. These teams are going to be playing to go to the conference championship, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action because right now, every NFL playoff game, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. The boost gives you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. All right, third final segment here. Well, let's discuss some things that's already permeating since the offseason has started. There's some thoughts that the Jaguars need to make a move for Maxx Crosby. I'm not opposed to it. Any deal involving Trayvon Walker, I'm going to be opposed to it. He's another one of those dudes you just do not let out of your building. You just can't do it. And I remind people used to talk about Yannick Ngakoue and say you can't pay him because he doesn't stop the run. All he does is rush the passer. Now people are saying you can't pay Trayvon because all he does is stop the run, and then they ignore the fact that he actually had 10 sacks 2 straight seasons in a row, that he got hurt this year and hurt his hand, and then he hurt his knee. And James Gladstone even said in the season-ending presser that pressure is more important than sacks because you can get sacked. You can run into a sack. Somebody can chase a dude to your way and you get a sack. But that pressure is something else, man, because pressure creates interceptions. Pressure causes anxiety. I think sacks probably too, but pressure is very, very important. And you really literally can't have sacks without pressure. You can't. You just can't have sacks without pressure. I'm going to give you some stats here, and I'm going to share this with you. I think Seattle has the best defense in the league, but if you think it's Houston, I ain't got no problem with you. So Houston has a couple of guys in Danielle Hunter as well as Will Anderson. By the way, the same Will Anderson people told me they didn't know what kind of player he's going to be, and I said, well, if you can't see it, I can't help you. But in any event, Danielle Hunter with 15 sacks, Will Anderson with 12, right? You look at Seattle, they don't have one player over 7 sacks. And the 2 guys that have 7 sacks, they play inside. Leonard Williams is listed as a defensive end, but he plays more 4-eye, 3 technique than anything else, and 4B. Byron Murphy is the other player with 7. DeMarcus Lawrence, their all-pro defensive end, has 6. But every time I watch Seattle, they're chasing the quarterback all around. They're chasing the hell out of the quarterback. So what that tells me is, since Josh Allen has a lot of pressure, since Trayvon Walker actually does get sacks and he's a menace, the Jacksonville Jaguars actually need help inside. This is why I've been campaigning for them to get a 3 technique in free agency. who can wreak havoc, right? If you look at New England, they did it when they signed the Williams kid from the Eagles. Now, Jalen Carter's and those guys, they don't grow on trees, but that's kind of where I'm going with it, right? I'm going, if you had a guy like that, he makes everything else better, because guess what he does? He actually does chase guys out of that pocket. The Jaguars just don't generate pressure on the inside. And I think that's where they need it. It's like that's where Aaron Donald and Chris Jones played. Just imagine how disruptive they will be if they find that. But however they get to it, John Franklin Myers is the dude that I'm talking about, 6'4", 288, and does all of the things that Leonard Williams does, 4I, 4B, 2I, 3 technique, all of that stuff. And one thing he plays with is a whole bunch of juice, right? Here's my problem with what at least someone told me, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I like Max Crosby. I think Max Crosby would elevate this team. But I wouldn't move Trayvon, I'd move Josh. And if I move Josh, and if you had to give up some change, I'm talking about a day 2 pick at most. From what I understand, the proposal says Trayvon and 2 first-round draft picks, and I think that's crazy. If James Gladstone did something like that, you have me doing podcasts for a week saying how crazy he was to do that. One, they don't have a first-round pick this year. They already did that for Travis Hunter. So you mean to tell me in one calendar year, James Gladstone's going to trade 4 first-round picks. He got one back, but he ain't going to have a first-round pick. He doesn't have one in 26. Then he wouldn't have one in 27 or 28. And I know the Rams made a living doing that. Here's why you don't do it. Max will be 29 when the season starts, and he's coming off an injury. You get it? That's enough, isn't it? But the other thing is why would you mortgage your future when you got here 1 year and went from 4-13 to 13-4? And one of the things you did very well was identify guys in the draft that could help you. Why would you change that formula after one season? And give up all your draft picks and chase the Lombardi trophy. You would be basically the Washington Commanders all over again. And I promise you, I've never seen it work. I've never, ever seen that work. When a team makes a turnaround by building their team through the draft, some young guys, sprinkling in a couple of free agents here and there that match up, you got your quarterback, and you're going to trade Trayvon Walker and 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby, who might play 3 more years. It just doesn't make sense, especially if you wanted to move on from one of your ends. Okay, trade them somewhere, get a first-round pick, and then sign Hendrickson in free agency. He ain't Maxx Crosby, but he ain't chopped liver and Trey Hendrickson. He ain't chopped liver either. And I know he's 31, but look, if this is what we're doing, we're looking at it in a 2 or 3 year window, I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks and Trayvon Walker for Maxx Crosby. And Max is a great player. No, I'm just not doing it. This team, you talk about losing coaches to job interviews. Why would you do that? They rave about Trayvon. You hear the way they talk about him, and I don't think they're saying all of that stuff and glossing over him to try to increase his value. It kills me. You just got to read the room a little bit. I'm not trading all of that for Maxx Crosby. I'm just not. And I like him, but he's coming off an injury. I'm just not doing it. Yeah, you're going to be better at rushing the passer, but you might start being worse at other things. And then you lose the draft capital to be able to help yourself. I'm just not doing it, man. And if they do it, I will give whoever wrote that, Ryan O'Halloran, I'll give him a salute and say, hey, you saw it coming. But I can't imagine them doing that. I really, really cannot. After I already gave up 2 first-round picks to move up with Travis Hunter, at this point, you got proof of concept. Just keep at it, bro. Keep at it. Sometimes I don't understand it, but everybody has their opinion. All right, man. You guys enjoy the football this weekend. I know it's going to be hard because the Jaguars aren't playing. Y'all can root for the Patriots, though. How about that? Everybody can root for the Patriots and root against the Houston Texans, whispering, no, I think Houston's going to win. All right, that's it for the week, man. You guys take care. We will see you. I know Monday we'll be doing a show, and then I do believe we'll still be doing a squad show on Monday and then one on Wednesday. We will announce that as well with me, O'Brien, as well as Marquise Ogden. Y'all take care, man. It feels so bittersweet not to have a game this weekend, but it is what it is. We'll see you later here on Lock. Take care. We do not take you for granted. Thank you for joining us.